Welcome to the Transform Sales Podcast, where forward-thinking business leaders come to share their experiences and ideas, learn from each other, and amplify their results together.
Hey guys, Amir Reiter here at the Transform Sales Podcast. I got my guest for the day, Tom Birch, CEO of Outreachly.ai. Tom, what's up, man? How are you?
Oh, good, Amir. Great to speak to you.
You're great to speak to me, man. We got to extract some information from your mind. Where are you based today? You're in London or UK or Manchester?
The dark regions of up north in Manchester, UK. So yeah.
I consider it all the same thing. That's why, but I know it's very much not the same.
I won't take offence at that. Don't worry.
So, who's your favorite soccer team?
Oh, unfortunately, Manchester United.
Unfortunately, just this year, right?
For the past 12 years of pain that we've been incurring.
I know nothing about soccer. But for those tuning in, those listening, this podcast, we like to interview CEOs and founders and people who are running outsourced sales agencies, pick their brains so that we can hear what mistakes buyers make when buying and when working with, in the hopes that we can avoid those mistakes and make a lot of money together from a buyer's and seller's perspective. But before we get into that, love to hear how you got into this business in the first place. What was the journey that brought you here to the outsourced sales world?
Yeah, well, finishing my master's, I needed a job, right? So, and
you needed to buy tickets. You needed to buy tickets to Manchester United games. They were getting expensive.
Too expensive. I'd rather go and play rugby. But yeah, no, I one, needed a job. Two, naturally a competitive person. And after completing my masters, I thought sales was the best route to make quicker money than going through the other operational type jobs. So I kind of fell into cybersecurity. By that I mean I turned up for an interview, I got a job, and figured out it was in a hot space. So I was straight on the phones and generating leads for pretty much an immature kind of industry at that point, where before the boom. And I cut my teeth on the phones, and that's where I flourished essentially, and then progressed through the ranks into a account director role. I spent 9 years at NCC Group, which was a really world global renowned organisation. Now, so that business grew along with the cybersecurity industry. And then I moved to a company that you may well know, BlackBerry, and that was when eventually tried to made the leap just prior to COVID into setting up my own business.
So you were doing sales in cybersecurity for many years, kind of cracked the code of having no fear and being a champion at heart. So you were naturally good at it. And then COVID was a catalyst for you to kind of go on your own and help other companies that are in the cybersecurity space as well, not exclusively.
And focus where my skills lie, and that was generating leads and creating opportunities, along with obviously the other parts of the sales process. So I kind of rewinded and started focusing on that, what brought me into sales and where I performed best, and being an SDR, so to speak, which wasn't even a role back then, was where I focused.
Yeah, I think it's a common theme, right? I think if you can fix a problem yourself, a very difficult problem that is difficult, which sales is, then building a business of those techniques, it's an interesting thing, because you're like, hey, I'm working for a cybersecurity company. They're not giving me training. They're not giving me these tools. They're not giving me all the structure I need, and I'm still doing very well. Well, what if I take those skills and then I actually build a business to support and amplify what I do well, and then you have Outreach.ai.
Yeah, exactly. And organizations were, in my view, were typically immature in how they approached SDRs, the SDR role. Not a lot of SDRs were given the tools and the resources to effectively generate leads. I really honed in on that specific aspect.
So I know that you guys service a wide variety of customers, but I'd love to focus, right? And I think for us, I think the cybersecurity is what I want to focus. I'm actually going to frame the next question towards cybersecurity. Mistakes that cybersecurities make when hiring and outsourced sales agencies. any come top of mind? And by mistake, right? I think there's a difference between a mistake being like, oh, this company's not doing anything the right things for me to close them, right? That's a whole different mistake versus a mistake being like, you're not, maybe you will buy and you'll become a horrible customer, or whoever you buy from, you're just going to be unhappy. What are those mistakes look like? What's the most common ones that you've seen?
Focusing on the solution before the challenge, I think is a common theme across not just cyber but other sectors. Focusing in on how great that organization is, all the features and benefit sides, as opposed to really focusing in on the actual challenge that they're overcoming for their clients, and then putting metrics around that challenge, right? So I think that's kind of the one that kind of springs to mind the most.
That makes sense, and I think I've seen that too. So basically, almost like a common theme in cyber and elsewhere is that the messaging is about us, right? Like, hey Tom, we raised $700 billion, therefore you should talk to us because we are so awesome, and we have an awesome headquarters because we have so much money and we're so big, versus focusing on the problems they solve. So it's a common theme of, let's talk about ourselves and impress people with buzzwords and fancy stuff that they don't need, and then set goals around a broken message to begin with.
Those challenge messages can be multiple challenges. Whether it's operational, whether it's a challenge specific to the solution that they solve for that particular person. So each outreach message should focus in on that specific person, whether it's their job role, or whether it's that specific sector. And like I say, applying the metrics as well. So, by doing this, we deliver X, and applying a metric to it. We save you X amount of time by doing it. By solving
would another way of saying it be that people or sales leaders or leaders like an outsourced sales forget to separate why people would meet from you separately from why they would buy from you, and they're almost treating everything like inbound, the website, and it's inbound comes in, and now it's okay, here's why you buy from us, right? It's the inbound lead, and just not really understanding that why people meet with you is often very different than why they buy from you. Is that a core cause of this?
Yeah, each situation is fairly different as to why someone would meet. There's obviously internal political motivations as well. They've got to really think about why someone would meet you, what they're going to personally gain from the solution that you're essentially presenting to them. So there's lots of aspects, political being one of them.
Of the buyers that come to buy from you, what percentage of them would you say have a winning formula already? Like what percentage of them come to you and say, hey Tom, if you say this at the right time through these channels to the right person, you're going to get X. What percentage of your buyers already have that formula down?
Very low, very low.
5%. Give me a number. I want a number.
I'd say 30% have a mature. I know it's quite a loose comment, but quite a mature approach to outreach, where they've got LinkedIn locked down, they've got a consistent approach across email, and then obviously they're following up with with the phone outreach too. So, and that's not talking about marketing, that's just talking about specifically lead generation. So a really low percentage have all of those channels on lockdown and really consistent outreach message and a multi-touch approach. Just because someone's not interested or at that point in time, there's no lack of cadence to then follow up at a certain point in time through email or a different channel. So having that consistent approach and consistent cadence is organizations typically, I'd say around 30% that we talk to have a mature approach to that.
Do the rest understand that? Like when you're engaging with the rest that don't have it, are they just kind of looking for an ROI? And are you saying, hey, things like market validation kind of come first? Like how do you talk to a buyer that's focused on the wrong metrics when they're engaging you versus reality being like, hey, you're over here talking about getting a 6-month ROI and a 9-month sales cycle. We're talking about, is your messaging actually work? How do you kind of get a buyer back into the space of knowing what he's actually buying, right? I think the tendency is always, I'm the best, I'm an expert, now I want revenue, but people don't talk about, that zone. How do you get them back to focus on what's really happening in a campaign?
Yeah, testing out the messaging, testing what works. A lot of organizations pick one approach, and really, it's a single point of failure. So really testing out different approaches, different messaging, taking the metrics that fall out of that, and using that to test other approaches and other messaging.
So that's how you execute it. That makes sense. But are you telling them, hey, like during a sales cycle, are you educating them on, hey, this is the information you're going to get? Or is it one of those things where it's like not even worth the battle? Like you're just going to start working with them. You're going to get results. You're going to show what's happening, and they're going to get, they're going to start getting educated and learning while the results are coming in, or is it beforehand? And it's an interesting question because I know that it's hard sometimes to tell buyers the truth.
Now I get your question. So I mean, if you take our service, for example, it's results driven. So during the thorough onboarding phase, we'll map out a realistic ROI and manage that expectation early on based on our experience. We've sent hundreds of thousands of messages on LinkedIn as a channel. So we understand that the average connection rate, the average reply rates, and then the average conversion, hence why it's a pay-for-result service. So we've already mapped that out during that onboarding phase, managing their expectation on the end.
Which is an interesting thing, right? For anybody listening, Outreach AI does pay-for-results, and by results we're talking about meetings. Ultimately, what's that?
Not necessarily. So, like I say, I've got to revert back to that challenge point, and the qualification. So we're qualifying prospects in, mainly out, really, first of all, because you don't want to work with someone that's not got a challenge that you potentially solve. So we're leading with that challenge question as part of that qualification process. So early on to qualify them out.
That makes sense. For those listening, the agency is a little bit different than a full-time body count, right? So you're actually, getting paid for results, so you have to do less of that education. You just go get results, right? But do you ever feel that buyers that work with a company like yours don't measure some of the positive stuff you guys do aside from meetings, right? Like I would imagine that sometimes. Go ahead.
Yeah, we split it into two. You pay for leads or you pay for meetings, and
okay.
But like I said, we during that process we're qualifying them for the leads. We're qualifying them early on, and they're taking that lead for into a meeting. And so I think businesses expect results, and that result might be a sale, it might be a meeting, it might be when they're expecting meetings, that they need a form of qualification, and that qualification is really important early on.
What about MQLs? Right? Why is it that people who want to build an outbound program know that buyers are in control, right? They don't kind of come to the table till they're 85% there. Why not ask somebody via LinkedIn or the channels that you guys use? You guys use mainly LinkedIn, right? And say, hey, Tom, so you're an agency owner, wanted to know if I could put you on my email list and just send you information to keep you informed of what we're doing. Why do you see that people want MQLs, to value MQLs, or is that an opportunity for people? Like, is it an opportunity for buyers to say, hey, instead of looking to buy either data, leads, or meetings, buy an opt-in, buy somebody who says, yeah, you can send me information?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I say, it's the data that you get out of the outreach campaign can be used, whether it's positive or negative data. That negative data might just mean that they're not ready right now, so they may need to go into an awareness campaign. All of that data is valuable in essence. So, having a bit more of a mature approach, you use that data and split that across your sales campaigns, and then maybe send that over to a marketing campaign where it's more of an awareness outreach as opposed to a lead gen outreach, to nurture them into maybe back into the sales funnel as opposed to into just keeps recycling the same data. So
that's what's happening, right? And I think that's business development, sales in general. I guess my question is more specific, meaning that have you ever seen a company that says, hey, Tom, I'd like to pay per meetings, but I'll also pay per opt-in. and I'm just kind of focusing on, I think, this area that nobody talks about, which is the opt-in, where all of a sudden the CMO, the marketing team, the theater team gets, the opt-in, right, which doesn't necessarily generate revenue, but the outsourced sales team is judged much higher on revenue, but not on these MQLs. Do you see an opportunity for buyers to want to buy MQLs and to actually like that? Do we live in a world where if you ask for a meeting, your conversion rate might be lower by trying to force somebody on a meeting too soon versus asking for an MQL? I guess that's my question. Like should we be putting more value on an MQL? Should outsourced agencies be hired for MQLs, marketing qualified leads, for those who listening who might not know the term MQL?
Yeah, I mean, we're often we typically speak to salespeople, right, and sales leaders, which kind of don't value marketing qualified leads enough, or they might be, there's possibly a disconnect between sales and marketing, right? So that they're not working in tandem and they're working on different metrics or different outcomes, but ultimately it's the same outcome. So yeah, I think there's definitely an opportunity there, but.
Well, how do you feel? Because I know what you're saying. What you're saying is like teams, internal teams are they're like this. So like I don't even want to bring it up because like I'm not going to bring it up. But what do you feel? Like, do you think that they should put value on MQL and that they should be buying MQL? I guess is what I'm saying. If you were a leader, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think that, like I say, the data, whether it's it's been warmed up data, is valuable nonetheless.
I would say that warmed up data, MQL is more than warmed up, right? Like if I make a personal connection with someone and say, hey, like I'm not asking you to go to a meeting, like you didn't say that you're ready to buy, but I just love to send you some information. That opt-in is strong, right? Like these people are going to be like, who's that guy? Who's that company that did not try? Everyone's trying to ask people on meetings. Right? It's like everyone is, right? It's like going on a date and being like, I want you to meet my mom. They're like, we haven't even got on a date yet, right? Like an MQL is like, let's get coffee, right? Let's put an MQL out.
That's not happening, by the way.
It's not happening in real life or just not happening in business. Everyone's going straight for marriage. Everyone's going straight for marriage. 12-month contract. It's like, because I hear what you're saying and it's cool because I feel that you most likely deliver a lot more value than you're getting paid for, right? Because I think if you live in a world of results, but no one's really viewing the MQL, the traffic you're generating, I'm almost being like, hey, Tom, you're doing a lot more for these companies, but because as buyers, because they're focusing on the wrong metrics, you're living in that space where you're just going to give them that high value. And I think they're missing the MQLs. I think they're missing the activity, and I think ultimately that hurts their conversion rates. That's how I think, right? I think that if they put a better value on the funnel and work it through time, they'd have a higher conversion rate at the end. I think that if you get people on meetings too soon, it's too soon, and it's my feeling. So, I think that from what I hear, it's interesting because I think it's like, hey, these are how the buyers are, right? And we know them, so we give them what they want, and we're really good at it. But it does sound like there's an opportunity for all of us in this community to start educating people 100%. On MQLs.
Yeah, and in an ideal world, that would be the case.
But we want to make an ideal world. I mean, there is no ideal world, right? No. Well, we have a concept of what an ideal world is, and it's always cheaper, more efficient, and faster. Usually, like these are like standard things in innovation. So, I think it's an interesting conversation to have when it comes to cybersecurity. Have you ever seen? Have you ever seen buyers make mistakes in the sense of like now that they get what they want, where they're like, are they following up correctly? Are they treating the leads the right way? What areas of opportunities are there for buyers out there that would hire a company like yours, pay for leads, they're getting the leads? What more could they be doing to ensure that they're satisfied and they're getting revenue and they're happy? Is there anything else that's happening that buyers like a practice that you just wish that buyers came in a little bit better prepared?
Yeah, I think a lot of organisations don't understand fully the channel that we operate in. Having maybe an education around that before coming into purchasing a service such as ours.
You got one book to recommend for your buyers to read. What is it? Before working with you.
$100 million offer.
With Alex Hormozi. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Because that shows people that there's a different reason why people meet with you than why they buy.
Yeah, well, it's all about the offer and how you shape the offer. A lot of organisations don't have that offer, and they don't articulate an offer in the right way.
Back to your mistake of they try to sell because we have the magical AI cybersecurity with a robot that never sleeps versus, how much money is cybersecurity costing you, right? So back to the same thing, that book you brought up reinforces the idea that why they meet with you is very different than why they buy from you, right? And
Yeah,
it's usually about them, not us, right? So I like that answer because it reinforces.
It's something I probably forgot. Like that offer is really important, especially when shaping our service, right? So the guarantees, the money back, all of the metrics that we put behind our service, that's kind of stemmed from that book as well. But having especially as a startup, having a compelling offer, you've got to have an offer or no one's going to buy it off you. And if it's a race to the bottom and there's no differentiator from company A and company B, they're just going to go for the cheapest option. So crafting a compelling offer I don't see many at all. So yeah, I think it's a good book.
It is a good book. I read it. I've also watched his YouTube channel, which is great, because he gets deep into all that stuff all the time. For anybody that's in cybersecurity that's listening to this, what does your best customer look like? And by best customer, I mean they get results, because we live in an industry that best always means they have an ROI and they're happy, right? What do they look like? Where are they in EMEA? Are they doing a campaign in Europe? Is it America? Is it a $1 million product, a $50,000 product? What does that look like? Well, you had a magic, and I'm sure it looks like all the companies you worked for before opening your agency, because I know it's where your expertise. But what does that look like?
Yeah, well, they're an SME, and it's a SaaS-based platform, which is where most are going. From a cybersecurity.
What do you consider an SME for those listening that might not know?
Yeah, up to 250 seats, I'd say was an SME, or 250.
So cybersecurity up to 250 seats.
Yeah.
Is there a size where it's too small, like above 50?
No, 100% not. We work with startups, getting people off the ground effectively, and shaping their outreach program, because they've literally got nothing. There's no limitation on size. Again, it comes back to your message and your offer.
I know there's no limitation, but for the purpose of this podcast, I want to get them the best, right? Because you might have, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, and if you got to pick one, what are you picking, right? That's the whole thing. You got to pick, so it's software, cybersecurity. Do you prefer companies that are UK based over US based, or both?
No, not at all. For us, any organisation where their audience is B2B2B and sell on LinkedIn is a use case for us. So there's no limitation on location, but mainly across the US and UK.
And what do you guys charge? For anybody, what do you charge per meeting, or is that something that if people want to find out, they can come meet with you, or is that something you can disclose on the podcast?
Well, we've got to, it's not just about the meetings and the and the leads that we create. It's all about the onboarding and the mapping out the strategy as well. So there's a thorough onboarding process, which is a separate standalone product as well. So through that stage, there's not only mapping out the strategy, mapping out the playbook to how to approach LinkedIn. There's there's thorough training on our methodology that we deploy across our leads or meeting service, so they can take that playbook away and we'll train them on deploying that playbook, and then they can run that themselves if they really want. So we're educating them too.
So everything changes basically based on their situation.
Yeah,
it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, if it depends on the average lifetime value of the customer, the average value of their sale, which dictates the meeting cost and obviously the lead cost. If it's a
so you're like a doctor,
product,
right? And that's the right way to say it, right? You come in and get your blood tested and get a recommendation based on your blood of what's going on, right? And that makes sense, right? Because why would a meeting that can produce $1 million revenue be the same cost as a meeting that produces $1,000? They're not the same meeting, right? They're not the same difficulty to book, not the same outcomes. They're going to be the same price,
Yeah.
and those are different.
And they should.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they should understand the expectation of what output they're going to get from the campaigns, because $1 million product, you'd expect it to be quite a complex sales cycle and fairly challenging in generating your leads. So there's a lot more work that goes into that, a lot more thinking about mapping out an account, for example. Those types of things, where if it's quick run rate business, there might be a different approach where it's lower volume. So we try and find a balance with what we charge for a lead in the meeting.
That makes sense. I think we have a few customers with you guys. I remember we met recently, but I know that we've been working with you guys, and so far our clients are happy, which is awesome because we're mutually attached to performance through the marketplace. And then I was excited. I know I reached out to you. I love the fact that you have. I love the fact that you worked in cyber before opening Outreach.ai, because it gives you focus as a leader. Like, the space probably, I would say, better than probably 80% of the people that are engaging you, right? Like, you've been in cyber probably you've been cyber for 10 years. They've been in for 3, right? And they're kind of looking at you.
15 now. Nearly 15, I guess.
15 years. They're looking at you like, how can you help me? You're like, you've been in this for 3 months, and I've been in for 15 years. So it's like, anybody listening, Tom Birch has been in cyber for 15 years, and he's been making meetings for cyber, and you can access him for not paying a full-time salary of a leader who's probably not going to be there for a year and a half, and get what you need. Yeah. Probably support your leaders to stay there, because your sales leadership's going to need meetings, right?
Yeah, sales leaders want to de-risk their outreach programs, because often than not they've been burnt a significant amount of times before. So
but are they victims? If they're also building billion-dollar companies, are they victims of losing a few $1,000s? Is it like, poor victim, they've been burned, but now they hit $1 billion, and now what? Like, is it okay to call yourself a victim if you're building a $1 billion business, or is risk normal?
Risk's normal, but if you can de-risk it, then I'm sure it's attractive for that leader.
You're so politically correct. You know what I'm saying? They're always complaining, I'm a victim, I've tried it before, and it's like, well, you're also going for $1 billion company. Like, Elon Musk tried getting a rocket to land, and he blew up 30,000 rockets. Like, this is what happens. Like I feel like we also try to de-risk, right? Like, we're a marketplace, we try people help find, negotiate, and pay. Like, so our whole thing is de-risk. But I'm also prepared to be like, de-risk, how much can you really de-risk something, in the sense that it should have some risk, right? Because if it doesn't have some risk, then it's a different position. It's building iPhones on a factory line, they're doing XYZ. The sales is complicated, and it's got a huge ROI. And that's why what you said, you got into sales because it had a bigger opportunity for you to make money as a young professional. But it also had risk, right? So sales has risk.
Yeah, but it was blind risk. Yeah, blind risk at that point, because time, investing my time into something wasn't really a risk that I was aware of. Investing money, I had, obviously I wasn't investing in anything. I got a job, but the 3 things that we de-risk is time, investment, and performance risk. And those are the
and I think that if buyers listening can put themselves in the shoes of sellers and absorb information on the seller side, they can further de-risk, because you can understand a little bit more about the people trying to help you and their wins and their mistakes, because everybody is on the same side, right? I think anybody who wants to transact wants a positive outcome. I think a lot of it's become adversarial, because that's how people felt like, well, we can't get aligned, so if I can't be on your side, then I'm going to be against you, right? It's like magnets, how magnets either pull or subtract. So I feel like buyers.
Those risks are replicated across industries, whether it's you're selling sales solutions or cybersecurity solutions or whatever it is. The time of investing in something is the biggest risk. Spending too much time investing in the wrong thing can take that division or that operation, whatever it is, back a fair few months. So,
I had a buyer ask for commission only the other day, which is fine, and then I said to him, well, why? And he was like, it's de-risk. And I was like, well, what is the risk of doing this for 6 months, realizing it didn't work, not hitting your financial goals? Like, you're trying to save 20 grand, but like, if you don't hit your pipeline for 6 months,
Yeah, exactly.
you probably lose $500,000 of cash and $1 million of pipeline. So people all of a sudden become afraid of loss, but don't become afraid of what they need to achieve, right?
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So
the positive outcome. Yeah, the positive outcome. I mean, commission only. I've been burnt with that. Because of my appetite for risk at that point in time, but not with that. That was short-termism. Short-term thinking as opposed to long-term thinking, where you're investing your time to get the best positive outcome. So it can be positioned, completely different, and it's situational, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense. Tom, this has been awesome. Where can people find you? Where can they reach you? What's the easiest way to get in touch with you? And LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, outreaching.ai. We've got on-demand webinars. You can go and check out our.
I signed up for one.
Yeah,
I missed it.
But it's on demand, so it's recorded. It's actually a great solution that we use and want to promote to our clients. But yeah, you can check out our no sales service there. That's a good place to check us out. And then LinkedIn is our main channel. So yeah,
everybody listening, Tom Birch, Outreach.ai. Find him on LinkedIn and his website. Tom, I appreciate you being on the show. And thank you, everybody, for listening into the Transform Sales podcast.
Cheers, Amir.
We'll have to go help some cybersecurity companies. Talk soon.
Definitely. 100%.
See you, man.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Amir.